You're listening to Second Cut. This is the weekly podcast where we discuss topics in film criticism, history, theory, and other stuff related to movies. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who has a human army jacket to give to these here fellers. I learned while googling that ESPN ran an obituary for Enrico Palazzo when Leslie Nielsen died. So we're talking about Leslie Nielsen because the new Naked Gun film, which is coming out or is out today in theaters, I guess, tonight. Um, and to be honest, I didn't know much about him aside from Airplane and The Naked Gun. And uh, reading about his career, yeah, he was a pretty, just standard actor, very handsome guy in a world of handsome leading men. And then finally he got cast to play straight man in comedies. And big MGM guy in his career until he left them and then got into TV. But yeah, I mean, I would say across the 30, 2 years or whatever of films we watched, his performances don't change. But seeing him without white hair is weird, though. And the other weird thing is that he he kept getting cast in things, but it's not like he was a well-known actor. He wasn't, super. He was in a lot of stuff, which is, successful, but he wasn't, an A-lister or B-lister or really any lister. He was in two comedies with Don Knotts and Bob Hope in the late '60s, and even through like the '70s, just nobody really cared about him as an actor. And then it was the threesome of Abrahams and the two Zuckers, and their first names I can't remember. They put him in. Yeah, there you go. They put him in Airplane because he was in two disaster movies that it was directly parodying, and yeah, the rest is history. He just continued to just play comedic roles. Yeah. Well, in the Plainsmen, like I think of what if Don Murray, someone had seen in him. Yeah, you should be the straight man in these hilarious satirical films. How that might have changed his career. By the way, Francis Marion was like the worst. We never talk about him. Not a great guy.
He's just one of these people that, again, just seems to have been constantly working in the early days. I mean, I think of somebody like Donald Pleasance, who slightly different in that, like, but again, the same thing that sort of he got big roles, but Hollywood never properly called for him, if that makes sense. You'd have thought, as James Bond's biggest villain,
Mm,
you'd have been instant success kind of thing. But he still ended up essentially taking on, if somebody offered him the job and he went,
yeah,
"Pay me and I'll do it," he'll turn up in the
yeah.
most awful horror movies in existence. Paganini horror. I mean, I vaguely met the director. It's not a good film. Like, I'm just gonna say it now. But he's in there and you're like, Donald Pleasance, what are you doing in this? Absolutely nothing of any note. It's like Leslie Nielsen just ended up as one of those. And sometimes you have to praise the jobbing actor that will just turn up, because if everyone was a Hollywood A-lister, the stuff wouldn't get made, because everyone would be fighting for the $15 million contracts for 3 minutes of screen time, Robert Downey Jr. style. And you need the people whose job it is to come in for 5 minutes over three scenes in an episode of FBI here, an episode of Grey's Anatomy here, and an episode of a reboot of Hawaii Five O here, and that's how they
Oh,
they keep turning.
I love seeing an actor playing like a recurring role on a show and being like, what have I seen them in? And I'm scrolling through the 2000s. It's House, Grey's Anatomy, Law and Order, Law and Order SVU, just every serialized drama and comedy that exists on network television. They have made an appearance.
Yeah, and they're obviously good enough for one thing to get repeat gigs, and if you're like that, they're good enough and professional enough that they will learn the lines, they will turn up, they will say their lines, they'll put in a decent performance, not going to tank the show, and they will leave again. And again, all these network TV shows, everything that's on Netflix now, outside of your lead cast, you still need those guys to do it. And, they're just as valuable performers and workers in the industry as you're going to get anywhere else. I mean, the film that I was working on, My Happy Ending, we had Michelle Greenwich on it, who about 2 years later, as I'm watching the first of Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor Who episodes, turns up as Ruby Sunday's mother in it, and I'm going, I ran you around Aberystwyth for several years, and you were kind of, it was a very stressful time, and you were not having the best of times because it was a lot of stress, and the budget wasn't the greatest and highest in the world, because that's how it works. You were a jobbing actress at the time for a couple of days, and this is how it works. This is how the world goes around. It's not just the Robert Downey Juniors and the Kate Maras of the world that make everything get to film.
Yeah, well, but before he was more of the TV jobbing actor, he was in a pretty big CinemaScope film though, and it wasn't his first. His first was in like '53, but just a couple years later. Kieran, what was he in?
Yeah. Well, according to Wikipedia, hilarious enough, he was in a film called The Battle of Gettysburg. He was a narrator, and as we'll come to when we do the Plainsmen is kind of set in the aftermath of the Civil War, so he'd already got some kind of thing going on there. But his first starring role, again, something I watched and did not put everything together, because in the nicest way, why would you? 25 years later, he's in Airplane and everybody knows his face. But he was in the film Forbidden Planet, which is very interesting, especially for me, because this is kind of why, as Sam pointed out, because we decided to do this, and I'm like, Forbidden Planet's based on some things I couldn't remember, and he's just like, yeah, it's The Tempest. I'm like, it is The Tempest. Guess what I'm doing? So guess what I did today? I reread The Tempest.
Well, I didn't realize that Morbius actually originated in Shakespeare, so we have him to blame for that movie. Interesting.
Yeah. Wow. And to be honest, before you even get there, you get to Doctor Who Morbius as well. So, yeah. But yeah, adaptation of The Tempest. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Marvel. Shakespeare has done to you. Or Marvel ruined Shakespeare.
Okay, so I don't know anything about The Tempest. What was transposed from The Tempest into this film?
Here's right. The basic plot of The Tempest is that there is a shipwreck with a load of people that get shipwrecked. They're coming from Milan, I think it is. Milan or Naples. One of them both get banded around. I can't remember exactly who's from where. And they get shipwrecked on an island which is inhabited by the magician, wizard, wise man, man of science, because all these kinds of things are kind of put together. So astronomy and religion and magic around the sort of 1500s are sort of seen as the same kind of learned,
like a Da Vinci figure.
almost kind of thing, yeah. Of Prospero, who has a daughter, Miranda, very famous character Miranda, who will eventually utter a couple of very famous lines, including "Oh Brave New World," which is where Aldous Huxley Brave New World. That's where the title comes from. Um, and Prospero has under his control the spirit Ariel, and kind of enslaved to him in a way, Caliban, who's a sort of the monster figure in this, if you like. And he has essentially conjured up this storm in order to, because he was essentially banished out of Naples, Milan, I can't remember which one it is, so he was the Duke, and his brother essentially kicked him out so that he could take the title. Prospero and 3-year-old Miranda were whisked away and banished to an island somewhere. These guys are now on a journey. Prospero has somehow worked this out and essentially shipwrecks them in order to bring them to this island as kind of vengeance. So it's set up a bit like a revenge arc. He kind of arranges for Miranda and Ferdinand, who's like the son of the guy who betrayed him, to fall in love and therefore get married. And this is so he's going to be able to use that to leverage his way out. He uses Ariel as a kind of servant in order to play various tricks and whisper things and do kind of magical stuff. Eventually, there is a character, is it Stefano, I think? Let me double check. Who's kind of the yeah, Stefano. He's a drunken butler. So
He's the
you'll see
robot.
well, no, there's a character in Forbidden Planet who gets drunk a lot of the time. So I think this is where this comes in. But Stefano has kind of visions of, well, now we're on a new island. We're away from everything else. We can usurp everything and become kings ourselves. We can rise up against everything. So stuff goes on. Eventually, Prospero kind of gathers them all together. Essentially goes, the ones that have tried to usurp me, who is Stefano, with Trinculo, who is a jester, and Caliban, who is essentially going to go, I'm going to, with your help, I can overthrow my slaveholder and become lord of things. They are essentially banished. He gives up his magical powers, has a kind of a courtship between Ferdinand and Miranda. The others that have wronged him, he essentially goes, I forgive you. And they go, we have done you wrong. And they sail off because he's essentially becoming an old man and he's about to die. So he gives this all up on the way out. And people had various interpretations. They've said that Prospero is essentially Shakespeare. So he kind of, Prospero coordinates everything in the same way that a playwright might. And this came at the end of Shakespeare's career. So they said, is this his way of saying goodbye to the stage in London and going back to Stratford
Yes,
and all these kinds of things?
it's considered his last masterwork, isn't it?
Yeah, so in the copy of the complete works that I've got, the only play after this is King Henry VIII, which I think is his last one. I think Shakespeare died in 1613, I want to say, and this was written in like 1610, 1611. We're not quite sure. We think it might have been written in 1610. We have, I think, a dated performance from 1611. And it first appears in print in the first folio, which is 1623, and this Tempest is actually the one at the beginning. That's why it's well known. So there are lots of things that kind of come across. You know, Prospero and Morbius are the same character. Ferdinand and Leslie Nielsen's character are pretty much the same. They're the suitor.
And
What's
mentally,
the name?
I did call him Leslie Nielsen the whole time. I don't know his name.
Let me double check. It is Commander John Adams.
He's
the most American name I can think of.
Yeah.
So Miranda and Alta, the Morbius's daughter, are essentially the same character. Robbie the robot is essentially Ariel.
And by the way,
Cleveland is essentially the monster from the id.
On the daughter, I do want to know, in this version, did he bring her as a baby, like in The Tempest, you said, or did he have a baby on this planet, like with somebody that died?
As far as I'm aware, his wife is there when they all go, because it's a shipwreck, I think it is, or the ship crashed here. So they've essentially transplanted the shipwreck of the main characters in Tempest to the shipwreck to allow them to get there in this. And his wife's with him. Everybody else dies, and the wife dies
Yeah.
but the daughter is born on the
I
planet.
mean, yeah. I mean, in Forbidden Planet, Morbius, he's killed off the rest of the other survivors, hasn't he? With his psychological monster, hasn't he?
Yeah, that he doesn't realize is him
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And so there are some things that are changed in translation. So there are a lot of things which are the same in terms of a lot of things to do with the plot. There's a lot of things sort of people have said that. I mean, obviously, if you think of Arthur C. Clarke's quote that any sufficiently advanced technology can be indiscernible from magic, then you go, the magic now goes to sci-fi technology. That's pretty much the same. There's also theories in the Tempest that kind of the island is almost a sort of internalized version of Prospero, that he has dominion here and his powers, but they don't seem to extend anywhere further out. He can't teleport anyone, he can control the weather and the spirits and bandy up hallucinations of gods, but it seems to be within a specified area. So there's that with again the technology, and again the id and the kind of thing, delving in deep like that. There are things that are sort of lost in the translation that you have to change, obviously, for technically a different story. So one of the kind of arguments that have been banding around for years on the Tempest is, where is it actually set? Where is this island? It doesn't have a name, and although it's theoretically kind of in the Mediterranean somewhere, some people have gone, but this is 1610, when there's an awful lot of exploration to the New World. 100 years ago, we had Cortez going out there. We have colonies being established by Portugal and Italy in various places in sort of the New World. Why is this actually not a colonial story? Because in the Tempest, when Prospero arrives, we have a witch there, Sycorax, which is where the Doctor Who monster gets its name from, hilariously enough, who has the son, Caliban, and Ariel is chained into a tree. And when Prospero arrives, essentially kind of gets rid of Sycorax, tries to take Caliban on as a son, and then when Caliban apparently goes to essentially force himself upon Miranda, he's taken as a slave. A lot of this also, it's been noted, is literally just hearsay told to us by Prospero. So we have no kind of confirming other sources in the play other than essentially the white straight male at the center of it. So a lot of people have seen this as kind of a colonial allegory, saying something like that. When you get to Forbidden Planet, that obviously is not there as much, because we are discovering the ruins of a civilization that was there before, but they are not alive in order to kind of have this colonial stuff.
2,000 centuries ago. They're sure to tell us that.
Yeah, otherwise known as 20,000 years. They couldn't have just said it like that. 2,000 centuries sounds better, I think.
Sounds more futuristic.
Or is it 200,000 years? I can't work out numbers.
I did like in the early kind of scene setting kind of voiceover of this, that they predicted that the moon landing would happen in the early 21st century, so they were a little bit out with that. But
I thought they said the late 21st century.
I can't remember. They definitely said 21st century.
Either way, they were wrong.
I was going to say, the fact that they get to the moon 13 years after this comes out is impressive.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's
And
slightly ridiculous when you think about it.
What's also impressive is just how much of this is repurposed in Star Trek. I mean, Gene Roddenberry must have been a fan of this movie.
Apparently, Gene Roddenberry talked to, I'm not sure if it was one of the writers or the director, something like that, and said that Forbidden Planet, he essentially wanted to do Forbidden Planet as a TV series. But I mean, a lot of the Forbidden Planet stuff, you can see it in stuff like Star Wars. If you think of R2D2 and C3PO, you split the two up, and it's essentially Robbie the Robot.
So I think that this is one of the first, if not the first, instance of a film showing a man-made spacecraft going to another solar system. That's not really something that was depicted before. You occasionally have like things coming to us, but it's like us.
Yeah, and I think you may have
the ones doing the exploring. It's it's quite groundbreaking for
that. One thing I thought on that front is, Kieran, for your next PhD, do it on like spaceships. I want to know why people decided that like a disc is going to be kind of the ideal spaceship shape. Even the Enterprise is a disc, just like with things coming off of it. At what point did we realize, maybe disc, not the most efficacious form of space venturing?
What was the first saucer spaceship in fiction or film? I mean,
I don't know.
before this,
I'm
obviously
assuming like H.G. Wells said that they were shaped like saucers, and
no,
people were like,
because
yes.
in War of the Worlds, they're cylinders. Essentially launched out of cannons, kind of properly sort of Jules Verne style, and they arrive because the top unscrews and everything comes out like that. Obviously, the year before this, you do have Earth versus the Flying Saucers, done by Ray Harryhausen. And
I'm sure alien abduction stories, whenever people are making those up, they're like, yeah, it was a saucer.
Well, I mean Roswell is 51, I want to say.
Yeah, yes, but if you see like those UFOs, you see like those blobs.
Sorry, 47.
Those blobs of light flying over, moving really fast. It probably looks vaguely disc-shaped, probably. So.
Yeah. I don't think there's a spaceship in Quatermass. Is there, Sam?
No, I don't believe so.
No, because the rocket comes back in the first one, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's like a human, it's a recognizable rocket, isn't it?
Yeah, and Quatermass in the pit is a lot later. So apparently this is one of the first faster than light specifically mentions in film. It's probably in something Asimov somewhere, considering Foundation have been out by now and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Einstein.
The idea of kind of explain that to an audience that's how you'd have to move if you were going to go to another galaxy. You have to find a method of achieving that.
It's one of the first films with a completely electronic score as well. I think it is apparently the first film with a completely electronic score because there were no.
I was going to say, I do love a theremin. I do love the sound of a themin. It's very
theremins
cool.
are great.
I think Ludwig Göransson really loved this movie before the 2020s.
Well, the interesting thing is with this, and I'm going to have to check on IMDb what they're officially down as, because there were no musical instruments being played. Apparently the kind of music people couldn't be listed and credited as like the composers and musicians because they weren't playing instruments. So they're down as something else, like
special sound effects provided by.
Yeah, it's something ridiculous. This is it. Music departments. So Bebe Baron and Louis Baron are down as composer, electronic tonalities. Which is just amazingly ridiculous.
It is really unsettling throughout the movie too. It's very effective.
Yeah, and apparently kind of because this was MGM, like they wanted essentially to do a first proper. Well, they reckon since Metropolis, a big kind of sci-fi film and expansive, and we look at it now and go, "This is pretty tiny." But by the standards, a foreign planet kind of thing weren't really done. So apparently, some of the set designers, I can't remember his name. I watched a sort of half-an-hour documentary on it, but apparently he was.
Yeah, it's sorry to say, it's more as like the cast characters, isn't it? But it's the scale of like the idea has been played with, and how the
CinemaScope
and stuff. Can convey that kind of scale.
Well, apparently
almost impossible scale.
The set designer, I'm not sure who it is now. I apologize. I cannot remember the guy's name, and I'm flicking through and can't find it on IMDb. But apparently, he was building like stuff sort of twice the size of anything they could afford, so that by the time they ran out of money, they were already half built. So they had to get it more to finish the thing off. We're already halfway there. If we get rid of it now, we haven't got anything. So you might as well give us more. We can build the effect, the stuff for the sheer scale of like the mountains and things like that.
Kieran, what is the story for this also after you finish on this?
Well, it's pretty similar to the Tempest in many ways. There is a ship that lands on this planet, which number 4 is like Altari 4 or something along those lines. I can't remember the exact name of it.
I was just going to quickly say Edwin B. Willis. he's this is set decorator. So he's sort of like one of the heads of the art department, and
Yeah.
he did like a lot of big Hollywood musicals back in the day. So he did stuff with Gene Kelly, like American in Paris and Singing in the Rain. So it's possibly kind of
possibly him.
a
Yeah.
big part of that, a big part of kind of making it look bigger than it actually was. For the big screen experience.
Yeah. So we've got Leslie Nielsen, captain of the starship C-57D, to determine the fate of the ship Bellerophon, which is a much better name than C-57D, which apparently crashed there sort of 20 years before.
What other movie has a Bellerophon? Is that Mission Impossible 2? Is that the cure and the poison, or Bellerophon and the monster?
I'm looking it up. Son of Poseidon and Eurynomy, foster son of Glaucus, so greatest hero and slayer of monsters before the days of Heracles. Okay, so he's in the Iliad. So obviously, when we all read the Iliad and the Odyssey before this time next year, we will come across him.
But it's that classic adventure story setup, basically, isn't it? It's like we're looking for someone, to see if there are any survivors, find out what happened to these people who sailed into the unknown, and you're brought to danger yourself. You're brought towards the rocks yourself. This could be. You could do this story again, going back to the Tempest. You could do it with traditional methods of travel, but kind of updating it to sci-fi kind of setting, kind of. It's kind of interesting.
It is the cure to Chimera in Mission Impossible 2, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
You
know, it was a Greek mythology reference.
I'm going to guess that Bellerophon kills a chimera in one of the myths somewhere, which will be why it's called. Anyway, so the ship arrives and Morbius, who is still alive, goes, "Don't enter. You come here at your own peril," sort of thing. And they turn up there and they're greeted by Robbie the robot, who takes them to Morbius's kind of palace that he's sort of made by he's tinkered with Robbie the robot so that he's able to duplicate anything he wants. And this is the kind of formation of an article, which I will hopefully get to in a minute.
And by the way, Robbie the robot is awesome.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's just a Dune suit. But
it was a really expensive suit, which is why they rented Robbie out to so many TV shows after this to get their money's worth.
They nailed on-screen robot. I could just see everything that comes forth from him.
And when you now think of on-screen robot, you look at him and go, "That's pretty much what I was thinking," So so they arrive there, and then essentially more.
Also, in his palace, he has deer and tigers that live in this expansive forest area in peace and harmony.
We will get to that. Do you want me to give the plot line or not, mate? Come on,
sorry.
I'm trying here.
My bad.
They have a go at me for rambling and ranting, and then they just interrupt me the entire time. We can't get a word in edgewise. Anyway. So he's like, the reason I warned you away is because 19 years ago, everybody essentially died and was killed by a monster. And it's like, why did you live? I don't know. I confronted it once and then it's left me alone. And it's kind of settled down for a bit. Anyway, as they're going around, they're like, okay, well, we need to do some repairs to get running again. And whilst they're doing that, the monster kind of starts attacking and various things. And it turns out that the planet was once home to the Krell, who died sort of 2,000 centuries ago, whatever it was. And Morbius takes them down into the planet, and they eventually work out that the monster attacking them. Essentially, the Krell had a device which kind of amplified the brain waves of a person to make them super intelligent and therefore able to do things. And this is how he's been able to build Robbie the robot and have the ability to kind of build his kind of house and palace and duplicate the deer and the tigers and everything like that. But at the same time, by putting it into there, it's created a monstrous monster from the id, which is the name of it, which is essentially run rampant. And when kind of the new people come in, and there's the possibility of taking Altair, isn't it, away, the monster from the id gets jealous and attacks, and no, you will not take her away from me, and it goes and attacks, and eventually I keep wanting to call her Miranda. Alta decides to go with the captain. Can't stop me. So Morbius goes, in which case I will use a self-destruct button, essentially, that the Krell built in, and get far enough away, and I will destroy this monster and also all the technology so that this can never happen again. And they take Robbie and they flee and they go back to civilization. That is the plot, roughly speaking.
Yeah.
We should just say on Leslie Nielsen, because this is the Leslie Nielsen episode. For a first starring role, for a first leading role, he's as good as can be expected, I think. I think he worked admirably. There's nothing absolutely stand out and stellar, but at the same time, there's nothing absolutely wrong with it either.
He's very much in that classic leading man mold, isn't he? You know, straight arrow, square jaws, kind of just gets the job done, hyper competent. You know,
he could be pulp 50s.
He could be any of the plain white guys that flew on this ship, but he is the one that talks the most. So,
yeah. And he's very much the kind of starship captain that you get around these times. And, you know, for that point, this is kind of very much in the same vein as everything else and not going much out. Interesting enough, when I was kind of looking at this, there was somebody, so JP Telothal, put an article called Science Fiction in Double Focus Forbidden Planet in 1989, who essentially was arguing that moving away from the Tempest and looking just at Forbidden Planet, that there is an awful lot of kind of the doubling idea that you have in this, not just the characters, but Robbie the Robot replicating things and various things like that, is almost a kind of pre-Baudrillard and simulacra hyper-reality thing going on. And there's essentially, he kind of argues that sort of... what is it? The monster from the id, it has no model in nature, no reference to reality, because it's like, well, it's the feet are of four things, but it walks on two legs. It's not normal. And he goes, it has no model in nature, no reference in reality. It's a hyper-real monster, or might we say the monstrous murder shape that the hyper-real might well take. So his argument essentially was that the device and the ability of the Krell to duplicate things and duplicate images and imagery, the fact you can do this so often means that you end up and create a world with you got all these miles of tunnel which are completely the same. There's no difference. There's no kind of relation to reality. There may be copies of copies of copies. You know, Robbie the Robot is essentially a copy of born from his mind. The id comes from Morbius as well, and there's all these copies and self-referential kind of ideas, and therefore it's kind of a pre-Baudrillardian take on the same concept, and therefore blowing up the planet is essentially going, this is the dangers of kind of the lack of the reference in the image and going off that kind of thing. Do I believe it? I can see how it applies, you know, when you actually read the full argument, you don't have me rehashing the arguments.
My thought was, how popular is Freud in the 23rd century?
I don't think it's how popular is he in the 23rd century. I think it's how popular is he as Carl Jung and Lacan and people like that, bringing psychoanalysis properly again through its kind of remunerations in the 40s and 50s. That's more the thing rather than Freud. I mean, actually, the id as a concept had only been around for about 35 years, because it's beyond the pleasure principle, isn't it? So that's 1920.
You could also say that kind of for a film that kind of moderately budgeted for a while, but not like, you know, not like a massive production or anything really. It was just you could say it's a cynical shortcut, you know, to save on money. Have your monster be metaphorical and invisible mostly. Except
here's the thing: originally they weren't going to have a monster, a proper kind of shown on screen, but apparently, like you know, in filming somewhere, like the upheads went, look, we need a proper terrifying monster somewhere. We need to have something. Now they thought about doing it physical, but they were like, it's just going to be a guy in a suit there. So what do we do? And apparently MGM didn't really have like a kind of special effects animation kind of thing.
So they borrowed people from Disney.
Yeah. The guy they borrowed essentially did a load of the stuff on something like Fantasia.
Wait, they took one guy to do all of these like drawn on special effects things?
Pretty much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it was one of the 9 old men, so he was like one of the founders of this kind of animation. You know.
And again, I can't remember who it was, but he kind of worked essentially on Fantasia and all these kinds of things. So like the beam of light when the thing's coming down, the blasters and stuff are like that. And they didn't actually kind of use cell kind of things. They did a load of stuff to it so that it's like individual kind of sketch drawings that you see. And they went through a load of different iterations of what monster you could get, like big worm things. They had an idea because it's essentially a creature from Walter Pigeon's mind. They thought of doing essentially Walter Pigeon's kind of giant deformed head on 2 legs kind of lunging after it. And went, that's not going to work.
Here we go. Josh Meador was the animator they got.
There you go.
So he was special effects artist, animation director for Walt Disney Studios. Worked on basically all of Disney's films up to that point. So yes, Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, Bambi, Three Caballeros, All Due Time, Cinderella. So, it's basically It was either a main animator or an effects animator on all of those features.
Did special effects 2 years ago, 2 years before that for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. You know, he's the one of the main guys that kind of was there. So that's why it actually looks decent.
And I'll give them that. That is that scene of them fighting the monster from the id, as it's hitting their kind of energy barriers, and its outline is shown through animation, is one of my favorite monster scenes in cinema. I think it's so well done. It's so good.
And it works because it's a monster from the id. It's a kind of psychological thing. It doesn't need to be physical, and it wouldn't work if it was physical. The fact it's animation gives it that thing. Hilariously enough, I'm just checking. So Joshua Meda did some work in the animation side for another film in 1956, The 10 Commandments. Now, why I'm bringing this up is the guy that did the 10 Commandments is Cecil B. DeMille, who did the original The Plainsmen, where in 1956 or 66 even, guess who starred in the remake of The Plainsmen for about one scene near the end?
Starred is a stretch.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
My favorite effect in the movie is when the monster's walking and just the ground is disappearing into that shape. And just sitting there trying to problem solve. Like, how would I do that right now in the 21st century? And I'm having to put thought into it. Like,
I mean, the obvious way
cool.
you'd do it is you'd have something underneath it and you'd literally lower it like that to have the whole thing drop. But in which case, you've got to build the whole soundstage. And I mean, like, there's even simple stuff. Like, when you first look across the planet and you see the dust cloud of Robbie approaching.
Yes.
You know it's not animation, so it must be kind of like a real thing. But it's so small and so far back, that's what makes it. If it was any bigger than that, you go, this is a soundstage. The fact it's so far away and is moving in real time, you go, well, how big is this thing?
And again, that shot, first thing I thought of was, George Lucas nicked that for Luke on a speeder on Tatooine, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's apparently didn't do incredibly well on kind of initial release, but then through subsequent re-releases and like drive-ins and things like that, it has become an incredibly influential. I mean, there's a whole chain of flipping comic and nerd shops in the UK called Forbidden Planet after this movie.
I'd have to say, kind of push comes to shove, I know there's quite a few like real good sci-fi movies from the 50s, especially like ones that are really about communism. But I think for me, probably best sci-fi movie of the 50s is between this and Day the Earth Was Still. I think I'd struggle to decide between both of those two. They've just the ideas they both play with, and just how hard hitting they are and how creative they are in terms of how they use their not terrible but limited budget. They've got to get real creative with it.
Another couple of influences, the Krell and Marvel are a thing, and then it also reminds me of the Mass Effect story with the Gith, where there's like an ancient civilization with technology that was wiped out.
I mean, there is a thing in
there
kind of
was a civilization, kind of existed, millions of years before, and we're just building on top of what they left behind and everything. Yeah.
I did see. I'm not sure if this is pure academia or somebody kind of summarizing theories in academia of kind of science fiction and that, but the science fiction, especially in kind of like space opera, is as much about the past as it is about the present, because pretty much any kind of pulp sci-fi space opera novel that you get to, they come across some ancient artifact from somewhere that they don't know, whether it's 2001 and it's been buried on the moon. Arthur C. Clarke does this all the time, like Rendezvous with Rama, which, god damn it, Villeneuve, when are you going to make Rendezvous with Rama? I've been waiting for years. Anyway, that is a big space object that comes into view. To recent stuff, so Gareth L. Powell, one of my favorite current sci-fi authors, have got a couple of books signed by him. A couple of years ago, brought out a thing. I think it's Descendant Machine, where there's these big kind of ancient rings that they find from the middle of nowhere. I think it's something like Ring World, again, these big artifacts in the middle of nowhere. It's as much about discovering the past as it is about stuff from the modern day. So, and I think even that is Wellesian to a certain extent. I'm thinking of stuff like The Time Machine, where he goes into the future but rediscovers sort of the British Museum and things like that, which has gone obviously since past. And things along those lines. So it's fairly Wellesian. But then even this, to a certain extent, yes, there's The Tempest, but there's also kind of Mysterious Island by Jules Verne as well, where you get there and strange things happen. With a plot twist at the end. I read it a couple of months ago that I genuinely did not see coming. Genuinely did not. Like, if you can slog through Mysterious Island, because it's quite a chunky old son of a gun. The last sort of 50 odd pages, final revelations come in, and I'm like, okay, wasn't expecting that. It's a sequel I was not expecting out of absolutely nowhere.
A strange thing in this movie is the relationship between anybody and Alta. So like when they first meet her, everybody kisses her apparently, except for Leslie Nielsen. And I thought like there's another like secondary military guy who I thought was going to be the love interest. But no, just the next day she goes, "How come you didn't kiss me?" while she's changing behind a bush. And then he does. And then he's the love interest, it turns out.
Yeah. And for the mid 50s, it's quite brazen how it discusses stuff like that. Acknowledges that this is a group of men who've been cooped up together for God knows how long for a space, and they've not seen a woman in a long time.
But then the absolute irony is the woman has never seen like a man before, so does not understand anything, because obviously he hasn't taught her anything, because he wasn't expecting her to go back to Earth.
I mean, that's a trope, isn't it, in fiction? Probably not overused trope, like the naive kind of alien or native,
or Indian princess.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I think like John Carter and Mars and stuff like that. But and then you get to Star Trek, where it literally is kind of Captain Kirk. Okay, we do not go and associate with anything. God damn it, he's snogging the sexy alien at the time. So the sexy alien from Fantastic Four, obviously.
What color skin does the space floozy have this week?
Oh, this time it's purple.
Woke nonsense.
Yeah, so Forbidden Planet, because I do realise that this is actually just turning into a Forbidden Planet episode, and there's not that much.
Maybe it should have been.
Yeah, I was going to say, we get to it, it's like, this should have been just been a Forbidden Planet episode, which is just like sci-fi from the 50s or something like that.
Because, by the way, guys, great movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's really
if you hadn't, again, watching it again, I go, this actually is a really good movie.
It is a little quaint and silly, I think, for a modern viewer seeing it for the first time, but it's still, like, the effects are impressive, for sure, the animation. When the tiger disappears, and I'm like, wow, he just killed that tiger.
Yeah, and there's a load of stuff in here. But again, as somebody pointed out, again, another article I was reading, I didn't get time to read the whole thing. Can't remember who said it now. But we're saying essentially looking at something like this is weird because you're looking to a future that feels nostalgic. Like, this is still in the future and it's set in the future, but it's in the past and it's quaint and weird and sort of like that. But so it is going to be a little bit feel good. But it does have some really interesting and quite brave and big ideas for a 90-minute science fiction picture when science fiction pictures were cheap and nasty B-movie. This is when Roger Corman's starting up. I don't think he'd done proper
A lot of rubber
sci-fi at this point. But yeah, they were rubber monsters, and they will, in the nicest way, be rubber monsters for quite a while. Even now, quite a few of them are rubber monsters. But this thing goes a new way and, tries to do some interesting stuff with it. And it's one of the better, more unique Shakespeare adaptations as well. So get your culture in.
Yeah. Not like Tromeo and Juliet. It's
okay.
Well, to go to a less creative and unique take on anything, but a change in terms of like medium is the aforementioned The Plainsmen from 1966, which is a remake of the Cecil B. DeMille film. It purported to have Leslie Nielsen in the movie. He is billed on the poster.
Fourth build in the opening credits, I think.
Yeah, so
which is pretty good.
He's playing, Colonel Custer, George Armstrong Custer. Yeah, that's his name. And by the way, he's not somebody we really learn about. That's kind of, you have to go learn about that yourself. That's
Custer.
Yeah, that and a lot of the Indian War stuff gets skipped over.
I was going to say Bighorn, though, is like one of the US's founding national myths. How do you not learn it?
Well, that's because we have more positive ones to talk about.
I mean, it's a shame, as Nielsen is, it doesn't get to play him for more than a scene, really, because I think the one thing that's missing from his long and varied career is I would have liked to have seen him play a proper villain, actually get screen time.
I thought you were going to say facial hair.
Yeah,
well, yeah, that's true. You don't see facial hair very often either. But yeah, I think it would have been really interesting as a villain, because a lot of comic actors do make that transition at some point in their career, like Steve Carell, playing John DuPont in Foxcatcher, for instance. That was completely left turn, but completely worked. Chilling in its way, because you just not expect to see him like that. And I think Leslie Nielsen could have had a darker side to him if they'd given a chance.
Yeah, you'd love to take like one of just like the good guys and just go, I'm going to make you play the villain because it's so out of character. I think it would work, But the fact he's only in it for a little bit, I was actually got to thinking of a film I watched about sort of coming up on 2 years ago for a film magazine article on Bela Lugosi. There's a film called Ninochka, which is he's like third or fourth build in that. And he's in it right at the end for one scene. And I put it on there because it was kind of playing against Lugosi's sort of horror stereotype typecasting. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a thing of just imagine if he'd have been allowed to have Hollywood call on him for things other than essentially your B horror movies. And it's really interesting. And this is kind of a similar thing that he's relegated right to the end. And I'm guessing he got that high billing essentially because the character is Custer,
So let's get the Leslie Nielsen out of the way. I picked this because he was in it. I'd like vaguely heard of it, and then Kieran reminded me why. This was John Williams' first score.
It wasn't his first, but it was an early days score,
Early days score. But I had heard that in passing or read it or whatever. He was billed pretty high. He's playing Custer, so I thought, oh, okay, yeah, sure. This is going to be a Leslie Nielsen kind of no, not at all. He is literally in it. So y'all are saying, oh, he should play the villain. He's not the villain in any. He's actually the guy who shows up to save their skins from the evil lieutenant who wants to court-martial them for breaking military rules and firing on fellow Americans and stuff like that. But he's like, oh, no. These scallywags deserve a second chance. Why don't you boys maybe come back for a next episode of a TV show that this is secretly a backdoor pilot for that I will be in? Yeah. And then it was never a show, so none of that mattered.
Yeah, and I'm guessing there is also a thing, the fact that it is a remake of a Cecil B. DeMille feature, who was kind of one of the big sort of guys going into the sort of the first couple of decades of Hollywood, along with people like John Ford and Hughes and people like that. And the Plainsman was, I think, at least decently received at the time. You've also got to remember, if you're kind of working in Hollywood in the 50s and 60s as well, you've got to do a couple of westerns. This is just how it works. Until about the 90s, you have to, maybe the 70s, 80s, you have to do some westerns. You just do it. Some people just end up in westerns their entire lives. Some you do one or two, but you have to go there at some point. And so it's like, okay, let's get our western out of the way.
And he did do like Rawhide or Bonanza, or maybe both, one or two of those. So my dad is really into all that stuff, and I was like, Dad, was Wild Bill Hickok, like, did people just love him in the early 60s when you were a kid? And he was like, oh yeah, big cultural phenomenon still. Of course, this is the era where like that stuff is getting out of vogue a little bit.
So you said this was kind of envisaged as possibly like a backdoor pilot, for an ongoing series or something like that. I mean, that stuff got the feel of it. Because the problem is, several westerns have done this, but basically they take a few of these well-known Western heroes, kind of put them in the same story, but it's almost like earlier versions of those characters, before they became the legends. So it's like, Bill Hickok before the mustache, Calamity Jane, when she was still, not quite as feisty and formidable as she's meant to be, it's a weird choice. It's like, let's take all these kind of classic West characters, put them in the same story, but make them less interesting and not do any of the things they're famous for doing.
Yeah, and I will say I did watch kind of from the side. I watched the 36 film, so there are bits I remember. I didn't watch it massively attentively, but it is, for 1936, there are some very impressive sequences. There's some very impressive kind of moving camera work, where it's kind of, I'm guessing, mounted on a vehicle or a horse, as kind of the horses are charging and following it through. It's a longer picture as well. It's a more accomplished picture. This is in the nicest way, the quick, cheap, and nasty remake. Some scenes are exactly the same, but it doesn't feel as accomplished either.
I'm going to quibble with you on that, because the important thing to know about this is it is a made-for-TV movie. So,
was it made straight for TV?
Made straight for TV. So in the
in which case it's probably expensive.
The budget was $1 million, which is $10 million in today's money. Huge budget for a TV movie. Like, when we think of those now, we think of just crap.
Sharknado.
Complete crap. Lazy, bad story. It's Hallmark, it's Lifetime, it's just churned out. But this was like right at the beginning of TV movies. So generally the first one is See How They Run from 1964. And NBC at this point, I think Universal owned the rights to the Plainsmen because they had released it in the 1930s. And so they like made a deal with NBC. I don't think they had merged at this point yet. But they were going to make this movie, make it like a big TV-sized event just to get people to tune in and watch something. And Westerns were, popular, not quite as popular, but they were part of NBC's world premiere movie programming strategy. So that's pretty much where this came from. Another big point in this was the FCC wanted more like quality content going onto television. So making a big Western film would fall into that. And reading from AFI, it was shot in like 4 weeks or something like that, had the $1 million budget, and then it was scheduled to air on CBS, but I don't know where they got that. It looks like they were looking at Daily Variety from the 60s. So eventually it ended up on NBC, aired on TV in 1966, and that is the film with Leslie Nielsen in it. That may or may not have been intended to also become a TV show.
I was going to say, and this is essentially they're trying the format out because the ABC Movie of the Week would start in 1969 until 1975. So that's the kind of series of anthology films that Jewel would come into, and that was made for under 500,000. So half the nominal value, but probably
Yeah.
slightly above half with inflation of a couple of years.
So what they're working with basically is, we know how the film industry works. We kind of know how TV, I mean, TV had been around for over a decade, but like TV programming and all of that was still a little bit of a like negotiation between
for film
consumers and-
rights in reshoots, but it's like, why don't we just make our own film and show it straight on the TV, and therefore we can control everything and get it out there. Again, and I'm wondering if they were kind of trading on the reputation of the original in order to help get the eyeballs onto it.
Yeah, that and the figures in it, and maybe Leslie Nielsen. Also, I mean, I looked up the people in it: Don Murray, Guy Stockwell, Abby Dalton. Like, these are just people who were in an episode of Gunsmoke, in an episode of FBI, in an episode of they're Leonardo DiCaprio during Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but without the big TV success.
Well, hilariously enough, I mean, the 1936 version, the main star was Gary Cooper. So like the original thing was he was born big names in that, and then this one comes out and it's kind of you getting. Well, I guess the reason why they got those instead of kind of big names is because they are pulling from their TV kind of stock. We're dragging them in the same way that Hitchcock was dragging from his TV crew for Psycho.
Well, where all the money went really was the location shooting in Utah. There's some really wide, expansive shots, like the one where the Indians come up on the hill before the big battle. Like, there's a lot of it in this movie that I'm watching this going, I can't believe they made this for TV. Like, who didn't say, just get some piece of crap and shoot it as fast as possible and let's put it out there? Like, it seems like people cared about making this a good film.
Well, I mean, if you're given that amount of money as a TV guy, imagine just like the director and going, you essentially get to make an extended sort of TV episode. We're going to give you the equivalent now of $10 million for the one episode. You'd go, yes, please. I mean, an episode of Doctor Who now was getting made for what? This is not that far off that now. The 10 million. So it's you're going to put the time and effort.
I think now the Taylor Sheridan stuff, Yellowstone, are probably not far off that really, but that's like prestige to drama TV, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a bit different.
Yeah, I was going to say you've got all this stuff in. The trouble is, like, as with most, it's just not as good as the original. I'm sorry, like there's no way to say it.
Well,
and also using these famous characters, I've seen many much better movies about them, and I'm just comparing it to those. This is just the cheap rush job version of that, really.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen, I don't think, any Bill Hickok stuff, and I have not seen the original.
But the classic ones, you think of things like.
I mean, whenever you're saying what he's famous for, I'm like, I don't know what he's a Western guy. That's all shooting people, scouting, cattle rustle. I don't know. You could have these people do anything in a movie and say, yeah, that's what they're famous for, and I'd be like, oh, okay. The only one I do know is Buffalo Bill, who they call Will Cody in this movie because like it's informal and they're all good buddies.
I was going to say, Buffalo Bill is the one that will eventually get Sitting Bull as part of his kind of touring company and going around and essentially just exploit him for entertainment purposes, even though Sitting Bull agreed to it. Buffalo Bill's like, I can make a buck out of this. And it's really weird at this point in time as well. Yes, you got Bill Hickok, but then Custer comes in and it's like, well, it's kind of in his between periods of what he's known for because he's a decorated Civil War general. He then, I somehow, like by coincidence, in the last couple of weeks, gone through like 10 episodes of The Rest of History. They did like a 10, 11 episode thing on Custer and Sitting Bull and all that kind of thing. But he does all this Civil War stuff and then has like a load of years doing odd battles, but also trying to be like in politics an awful lot and being really awful at it and making a load of enemies. So it's in this period that's happening, and then obviously he goes to Little Bighorn and gets absolutely destroyed. And dies from it and becomes kind of for a long time kind of the
Kieran,
martyr.
stop telling the story because none of that is relevant because he's not even in this movie until 4
I know
minutes.
that's my point. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna get that,
which definitely makes me, which definitely I think adds credence to the theory that this was a pilot, because you wouldn't introduce such a famous historical character in the final scene of your movie unless he was going to be a big player like later on. It's like you wouldn't have Lincoln turning up from the final scene going, "I'll represent you."
What this movie is about is like, so Bill Hickok is friends with an Indian named Black Kettle, and so this is not like a progressive, in terms of like the Native Americans movie. This is very much, there's some good ones and there's some bad ones, but they are the bad guys, and expansion is the goal and good, and we are fully on the side of the settlers. You can tell there's negotiation in there, but
the stupid thing is that in the original, literally Custer is in it a little bit more, and you also have kind of it goes through and then into the aftermath of Bighorn as well. So this essentially is like, oh, this is the TV version. We want to remake it, but we're going to cut to make it 90 minutes so that we don't have all this extra stuff on the end. So there's like an entire act from the 36 version, which is just cut out of this one, where you do get a little bit more Custer. He's not like massively in it, but you do get like a good sort of, I don't know, 5 minutes extra with him and a couple more scenes of his story going on. So it's like, what's going on?
But in this era, we're not quite in the kind of revisionist kind of Western kind of mode yet. It's still like that classic era, kind of very kind of black and white. Cowboys are the good guys. The bandits and the Indians normally are the bad guys, and there's not going to be much nuance given to that, really.
Yeah, I mean, so what it does have is Black Kettle is like, he's a friend of Bill's, so they're buddies. He does tell, that they sort of negotiate the truce or whatever, and like there is an effort to show that he is, not like not all Indians are evil, but there's still the undercurrent of like, but we don't care about what his goals are, and we don't care about his well-being. We don't care about Black Kettle other than he's cool with white people, and therefore we are cool with Black Kettle. He is one of the good ones.
I was going to say, it'd be another sort of 3 years before we get to Wild Bunch for the revisionist stuff, which we obviously did cover in our Villain Team episode sort of 2.5 months ago. So obviously go check that out.
Arguably, The Searchers is revisionist, but like not fully yet. Like even that is still it's still in the throes of like negotiation, but it's stronger than this, and that was 10 years before.
When I in the nicest way, when I think of revisionist westerns, Searchers is not what I think of. It is Wild Bunch, But it's very bog standard. Again, Leslie Nielsen, he's good whilst he's there, but in the nicest way, he doesn't have much time to screw things up. Like
there is a so kind of what happens is it's who knows when after the Civil War. It could be a couple years after. It could be 5. I don't know. But he's wandering around in the outfit, and he runs into Calamity Jane, who takes him into town on a stagecoach, and then he trades clothes with a British guy who's wearing a monocle, and then he
asks him how it stays on, and I have no idea.
He plays poker, and he catches a guy cheating because he's like, I don't know, a genius, but he doesn't shoot him because he's got some restraint, and the marshal is very impressed by that. And I suppose this is a reference to what's come in 6 films. Wild Bill died during a card game, didn't he? He was shot while playing cards. That was not in this.
Was that the Dead Man's Hand?
I think so. Yeah.
Is that one? That where I know Bill? Yes, it was with Bill Hickok. So the Dead Man's Hand is 2 black aces, 2 black 8s, and another card. Sometimes it's a 10.
Well, what Bill does is, I don't know, Western wandering stuff. He's in the town. Then what I remember is, so there's Bill Cody's wife, or Will Cody they call him. His wife is pregnant and she's hanging out with Calamity Jane, and this is like the mildly feminist point in the film where they're like, I choose to be a housewife and I choose to be a wild range woman, although I am still in love with the man and wish he would acknowledge me. That's Calamity Jane's deal. But then the Indians show up and kidnap her and Bill, and then they're cooking them over fire, and they're like, which way did they? Because Crazy Knife, he's the bad Indian. And that's the best shot of the movie, is evil Crazy Knife at this fire pit, and he's like all red and angry. It looks really good. I don't know if like they're trying to make him more red as like Red Man or anything like that, but somehow Bill gets away. And then there's a big shoot 'em up scene between the army and the Indians. And finally, Black Kettle is injured, and he's like, you're going to have to kill me, Crazy Knife, if you want to attack these white people. And he says, fine, I won't attack them. And he rides off, and Bill shoots an American soldier, or shoots the gun out of his hand to stop him from attacking the Indians. And that's why they're going to get court-martialed by Custer, but Custer's like, no, I'm going to represent you. I'm on your side. You're the exact kind of hilarious rogues we need in the Wild West. Some real good guys that don't mind bending the rules.
Just kinds of people I want by my side while committing a genocide.
Yeah, exactly. And there is really no acknowledgement of that it is genocide, that what is happening here, Indian wars in order to clear out land for white people to move into and America to expand into. But yeah, no, it's basically like watching a Western TV show with slightly more social awareness of the era that it's in. And that's it. And then Leslie Nielsen's there for 4 minutes with facial hair.
Yeah.
You would come if you knew nothing. Let's say you guys didn't know anything about Custer and you watch this. You'd be like, so Jacob, was Custer like a huge revered like good guy in the American military?
Yeah.
Do people love him generally? Is he thought of as a great fellow?
Who, Custer?
Yes.
No, the thing with Custer is that because he was like very kind of romantic in his charges of being kind of I'm going to ride out for victory in gambling, essentially, with loads of lives, and it worked. He'd do stuff which everyone would be like, this is awful, this is against, like, commands and stuff, but at the same time, there's like, yeah, but you're the romantic, lovable rogue, go on, you, and he'd just get away with, like, stuff that everybody else would have been shot and demoted for and everything.
He was like Zach Brannigan in Futurama. I said wave after wave of my own men at them. At least they won't have to mourn each other.
Well, in a way, he is a bit almost, again, strange enough, like Captain Kirk, in a way that it's kind of, in a way that sort of the myth of kind of the Western kind of the expansion of the US into the Wild West, if you want to say, is sort of replicated in Star Trek and kind of going on, into the unknown for the white man, as it were. And Custer was the kind of person that would break every rule in the book, but essentially be suave and kind of charming enough to get away with it. So kind of everybody did kind of love him. There are a couple that thought he was an absolute kind of madman and should never be allowed in anything, but he did have a kind of way with words and a charm.
I'm sure there's a certain proportion of the American population who revere him, just like they do a lot of people who get statues in
Robert E. Lee.
Counties.
Well, so I think the tagline sort of sums up the real lack of like meaning for the film. When the land needed law, when the West needed taming, when adventure needed a giant, they sent for the Plainsmen. And then it's just, Wild Bill in a really boring jacket with a plain shaven face. It's crazy that The Searchers came out 10 years before, and they couldn't put really any edge into this. It's a lot more Bonanza. It's a lot more rawhide than it is like a Western worth watching. What Johnny Williams. Sorry, that's how he's credited. Johnny Williams' score is incredible. Like it fits perfectly.
And the thing is,
John Williams.
I was going to say, if you just heard it as a piece of music in general, and somebody had gone, "Who did this?" if it was just as a piece of music, you might go through like a couple of the classical composers, but in like your top 3, you'd throw as a wild shot. Sounds a bit like John Williams, you know. If you'd have gone, who did this film score? You'd have gone, is this John Williams? Because it just it just sounds like him. You can't get away from it. This is in the this is before he's done anything he's known for.
If there's a lot of brass and strings on a film soundtrack in the 60s, it's either John Williams or it's Jerry Goldsmith.
I have a little bit of woodwind in there for kind of playfulness.
I'm now picturing that scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where George Lucas is Al Pacino and he sits down and he's like, I saw a double feature. It was Forbidden Planet and The Plainsmen. And that is how he came up with Star Wars. And then I also watched Kurosawa's filmography after.
Yeah. Throw that in and you've got it about right. Yeah. So again, this is for John Williams. This is one of the first one in sort of, I don't know, the first sort of 10 or 15 scores that he'd done.
The other thing that sucks about watching it is the YouTube version is in very low res and it's hard to watch. Even on my computer screen, it's tough. So,
I was watching it on an iPad, and I was squinting to try and get the pixels to merge a bit better.
Is that Leslie Nielsen? No, that's not him yet. Not yet. But still black hair.
This is our watching of it. This is not taking away from the film itself, although probably the film itself hasn't been remastered at any point, I would guess.
No, I did look it up. You literally cannot get it anywhere. No, it's not available digitally anywhere. It's not available physically anywhere. No, just...
so we're
YouTube,
not...
YouTube Rip is the only version.
I was going to say, we are not saying that you should post films straight to YouTube against copyright, but like... in the nicest way, we are thankful it's up here.
Please use it. Please use the Internet Archive because a lot of these things are getting locked away in vaults and not accessible anymore.
What I did see off to the side was that Harrison Ford Western from '79. Toledo, the Laredo. I don't remember what it was. The something kid. And I was like, ooh, I should watch that. And then I saw a Lee Van Cleef full movie, and I was like, ooh, I should watch that. And then. No, I had to watch this instead. So, although I did choose it, and my argument is I was tricked by the internet. Someone needs to put somewhere that Leslie Nielsen is only in it for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're lucky.
Yes.
Are you thinking of the Frisco Kid?
That's it. Frisco. He stands for a second, and then he sits in a chair. So there you go. It's a lot like Steven Seagal.
And somehow better acting than Steven Seagal.
At some point, I mean, he kept his gun but took his clothes off. I don't know what's the next movie? I'm confused.
I don't know. He goes through the 70s, makes it big in Airplane, and then essentially that is his career now. So when they go to do Police Squad.
So Abraham Zucker, famed kind of comedy writing
law
team, very much into they do cycle law firm, don't they? They're very much into from a Kentucky Fried Movie onwards. They became famous. Next to Mel Brooks, they're like the not inventors, but kind of they made popular again, like the spoof genre essentially. So you take what genres are popular today, and we'll take the absolute piss out of them, but affectionately. So
I mean, before then, you do have other obviously spoofs and stuff like the Abbott and Costello and Carry On and things like that. But possibly in terms of an American kind of. Not blockbuster audience, but you know what I mean, kind of mainstream attack. It's probably
I think so. Yeah, and they obviously saw something in Leslie Nielsen, this previously straight actor, and they thought something's funny in that. So, in Airplane, you have it was an ensemble cast in Airplane, basically a disaster movie, and then Leslie Nielsen plays this guy who just comes and goes from scene to scene. Most famously telling them, I just want you all to know, good luck. We're all counting on you for getting out of there.
My favorite part is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Really?
Yeah.
Korean Abdul Jabbar? Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I know what one of those is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did that in the late 70s, very successful. They mentioned Airplane 2, but their other big comedy franchise was The Naked Gun, but that was in itself based off their short-lived 1982 series Police Squad, and I really mean short-lived. It was 6 episodes.
Yeah,
It's
It was
like
cancelled.
standard British show then.
Yeah, but I tell you what,
that's an awful lot of episodes for a British series.
If you can find it, it's well worth checking out. It's just so good, and the 6 episodes, but 6 great episodes. Recurring gag, like each one. It's the episode's titled one thing, but then the on-screen credits is a completely different title. My favorite gag from that whole series was when someone kind of sneaks into an office, and then a guy comes in behind and goes, "Who are you, and how'd you get in here?" And the guy goes, "Well, I'm a locksmith, and I'm a locksmith." Yes, so in that he played Lieutenant Frank Drebin of Police Squad, who are this elite subdivision of the police department. He's basically part cop, part spy, essentially.
Yeah, I was going to say almost
gets,
sort of like a precursor to somebody like Johnny English.
Basically, yeah. And basically each episode of the TV series, it was like a different kind of case. You take the piss out of a different kind of plotline you get in a cop show, basically. Also famous for they have like a big name guest star in each episode, but they always die in the opening credits. So it's like special guest star. They're always just shown to die horribly in the opening credits and then never seen again. And each episode ends on a freeze frame, but they're not actually, the film is actually frozen, they're just holding really still.
Yeah.
And to the extent that one episode that they're interrogating a perp, and then end of episode freeze frame, and while they're all standing around still, the guy they're interviewing just escapes, he just makes it out of them.
Beautiful.
So that's very much their kind of humor. It's referencing kind of title tropes, but like doing a really silly twist on them, basically. And I've got like a lot of affection for Zaz kind of movies growing up. My dad showed them to me probably when I was far too young. If now I think about it, but I saw all the Naked movies. Saw Airplane. I think I saw Kentucky Fried Movie later. So,
Sam, how aware were you of O.J. Simpson as a figure when you saw it?
Not at all. No, that's only got funnier over time.
Here's the thing: I would not have recognised O.J. Simpson. You showed him to me because I just never seen his face. No. So at the end of this, it was like O.J. Simpson. I'm like, oh God, was that really?
Yeah,
that's not good.
So the part of the first movie, like it matters really, it's essentially. So we start off for some reason. Frank's in Beirut, and he busts at a meeting of America's worst enemies, basically. So sitting around the table, you have Idi Amin, Gaddafi, the Ayatollah, Yasser Arafat, Castro, and Gorbachev. Basically, and they're all potty. So we've got to pull off some big acts of terrorism, and undermine the US, and I'm going to do it now. And then Frank comes in and beats them all up, and leaves by the window and says, "Don't let me ever catch you in America."
Yeah.
And then he gets back to LA, and he thinks he's got a big press conference waiting for him, and he's still getting over the split from his ex-wife. It turns out the press are actually there to meet Weird Al Yankovic, who was on the same plane as them. But basically, the whole point is Queen Elizabeth is going to be visiting LA, and police squad are hired to protect her, and there's a plot to assassinate her. Essentially, that's it.
I mean, I want to know, like, if you're going to do this, because you are essentially ripping the ever-loving piss into, like, the royal family, do you have to get a certain amount of permission before you do this? Is it libel or slander?
No, the public figures, I think you get away with it with royals and politicians generally.
She hadn't murdered Princess Diana yet, so they couldn't make fun of
Yeah.
Excuse
Yeah.
me, that
Well,
was Philip, not Elizabeth. I'm joking.
Nice little mini factoid here. The Queen here is played by Jeanette Charles, who holds the record for playing the Queen the most times in films. She played Queen Elizabeth in 29 times over her kind of 30-year career.
They just kind of go, we need somebody to play the Queen, and sort of the 80s will get her in.
She does look like her.
They discovered that she had uncanny resemblance, and she basically made that a career. I think she only played the Queen basically for most of her career.
She's an Austin Powers.
She's an Austin Powers, yeah. And if you actually look at a picture of her over time, like different films, she actually ages just like the Queen does as well. So she always looked like the Queen because she was about the right age for it. So basically, it's a series of sketches on the back of that. So Frank kind of trying to get to the bottom of the plot. You got Ricardo Montalban playing the main villain, and basically he was cast essentially because he just played Khan in Star Trek 2, and they said, "Oh, that worked for that. Let's have you play other villains." And you have. I mean, it's a pretty impressive cast, to be honest. You have,
George Kennedy's in it.
Yes, George Kennedy is his captain. So he was a bit of an upgrade from the guy who played him in the TV show. I can't remember who that was now, but basically they wanted a name, to be in this with Leslie Nielsen as like play the main sporting player. It's got George Kennedy in this. Current guy with George Kennedy is he's got marital problems basically, and then you have Priscilla Presley as the main love interest, and she's actually really good in this. I mean, I don't really know her that well as an actress, but I think she's got really kind of comic timing in this, and think she kind of gives as good as she gets. And yeah, O.J. Simpson as Detective Nordberg, and he's the first one of the first characters we see in this. Obviously, you have the pre-credits scene with Frank in Beirut, but then it's you see O.J. Simpson like on a intelligence gathering mission, basically, a big drug deal going on a boat.
Yeah,
it's always one of the best gags in the movie where he's listening in and he's going to go for it, and you've seen all these movies where like cops always perfectly boot down doors, and to get in and get their perps, but OJ manages to just put his foot kind of through the door, but just make a big hole in it and get his legs stuck. Like all the guys just looking around, just looking at this guy trying to struggle to get his foot out the door and get his gun out. So yeah, he's good at this. I mean, so one of the big gags in the trailer for the new one is all the cops, basically police squad, are basically sons of the previous characters from the franchise. So they're all in front of pictures of their dad. So you have Liam Neeson in front of Leslie Nielsen, Paul Wataboi in front of George Kennedy, and then this other guy in front of a picture of OJ, and he just looks towards the camera and just shakes his head.
It's not good. Not good, man.
Yeah. So it's just a series of skits, basically, and essentially, Frank, he's well-meaning, and he's got a particular set of skills. He's quite physically accomplished. He's got a good stuntman in this to do all the flips and everything. So some nice cowboy switches in this, where you have the stuntman doing the complex bit, and then the actor pops up from behind a piece of furniture. But basically, Frank, he's accident prone. He's like Inspector Clouseau. Basically, he'll no matter how well intentioned he is or how clearly he's thought out what he needs to do in the situation, something will always go wrong. Whether usually as a direct kind of fault of something he's done. So he's also accidentally pushing people out of windows and causing damage to evidence and stuff.
Crashing into cars, that kind of
usual
slapstick kind of
all that kind of stuff. A particularly memorable scene. Again, definitely not. Definitely wasn't meant to see this scene when I watched it with my dad when I was about 9 or 10, probably.
It was the driving instructor.
There's that. No, but I was thinking more was shuffling on the outside of the building.
Yes.
And he's using the breasts of kind of statues on the outside as handholds, and then the penis of another one, which kind of bends with him as he kind of catches hold of it to break his fall. and then he ends up bursting into this room of this woman brandishing this stone penis, basically. And they're raising his charges in the next scene, and she goes, "Sexual assault with a concrete dildo." Yeah,
Some things you can't make up.
I'm a fan of just the lines in it. Like whenever they say,
Yeah.
"What do you want a nightcap?" and he goes, "No, I don't wear those."
I don't want to. Yeah. I mean, one of my favourite recurring gags from Police Squad, which they didn't use in this one. They might have used in some of the Naked Gun sequels, but whenever someone's offered a cigarette, so they have cigarettes, and they also go, "Yes, they are." Oh, yes, I know.
Cigarette? What is that?
Yeah.
That's not important right now.
So I did like a top 5 of my kind of favourite lines for this. There are some absolute classics. I mean, they're very, very silly and pun laden, but so I liked you take a chance getting up in the morning, crossing the streets, or sticking your face in a fan. And they got to speak to Norberg, O.J. Simpson, who's in intensive care after his basically being shot, riddled with multiple gunshot holes, but somehow they all missed his vital organs. But they talk to his wife, and Frank says, "Wilma, I promise you, whatever scum did this, not one man on this force will rest 1 minute until he's behind bars. Now, let's get a bite to eat."
Yeah. What comes in at number 3?
Then you got it's the same old story. Boy finds girl, boy loses girl, girl finds boy forgets girl, boy remembers girl dies in tragic blimp accident over the Orange Bowl on New Year's Day. And you talk about Priscilla Presley's character, one of the classics, which isn't in the top 5, but it's a good just crude pun. It's Priscilla Presley's up a ladder. Frank looks up. He goes, "Oh, nice beaver." And she says, "Thanks. I just had it stuffed," before passing down a stuffed beaver.
Yeah.
But I liked his description of her. It's like very much like a film noir kind of quote. Like, her hair was the color of gold on an oil painting. She had a full set of curves and the kind of legs you'd like to suck on for a day.
It's just which kind of.
And my favorite of all was George Candy's Captain Ed Hock, and again talking about Norberg in hospital, and he says, "Frank, he's on life support. Doctors say he's got 50-50 chance of living, though there's only a 10% chance of that."
Yeah, it's definitely. I was going to say the line "you couldn't make this movie today" is bandied around a lot. And I think, well, again, the new one's done by Seth MacFarlane, isn't it? I think Seth MacFarlane tries. I think he's best in his kind of animation stuff. I don't think his feature films have quite got the thing, because it's a different style of kind of absurdism to a certain extent. Yeah. This is very much in the airplane sort of thing.
Well, also, this isn't that like racy. You could make this today. It's not like the new episode of South Park, which they made today, that says the R and F word, referring to Donald Trump while showing his micro penis talking.
No, there's just a kind of there's an absurdism in this that again you get away with, I guess, in stuff like Family Guy and American Dad and McFarlane's kind of animated stuff. Very rarely, I mean, I'm not the massive comedy guy, but I don't think you very often see, I mean, thinking of stuff like Airplane as well, because obviously this is kind of, I'm not saying riffing off, but the fact is Leslie Nielsen, Airplane's what it's in the same vein. And I know I've seen Airplane a load of times. I've seen this once, so apologies, Airplane's in my head. But that kind of, there's stuff in Airplane that's just literally off the cuff. You know, my favorite gag in Airplane somehow is just like, that's impossible. They're all on instruments and they're just playing in like a band in the cockpit. You like, who is going to make that as a joke now? Nobody's going, and that kind of not Monty Python-esque absurdism, because it's a different kind of vein, but that kind of
like dry,
stupid, dry kind
snappy.
literalism. Let's take reality out of the window for a second, sort of
Yeah.
thing. A lot of comedy now
I mean,
tries to make it funny, but still grounded
yeah.
in some
I
sense
mean,
of reality. This just
what's good?
doesn't.
What's good about Zucker kind of comedy is it's just the sheer gag rates. It's like even if not
Yeah.
everyone lands for you before, you know, kind of you went, oh, that wasn't that funny. You know, another one's come along and hit you. You know, it's like they're just,
Yeah.
just rapid fire and so many different kinds of comedy. You know, there's wordplay, there's kind of crude asides, there's kind of spoofs of like famous visuals from like movies and TV. There's just
Yeah.
like I mean, you can just rewatch this stuff, and there's stuff that's going on in the background that you probably would never notice like the first time around, but it's there. It's
Yeah.
like Frank goes back to his apartment, and Gags, he's not there very often, so like everything's expired in his fridge. That's why I think the milk was expired the same date as Police Squad was cancelled. I think if you go back and see it, which is nice, but like there's a shot of him. So yeah, all his food's expired and everything's but. And he's just talking to Priscilla Presley, but just over his shoulder, almost imperceptibly, there's a wedge of cheese on top of his fridge, and it's moving. It's like slowly crawling across like the top of the fridge.
Yeah, it's a style of comedy that I think probably comes from a lot of sort of the again the sketch shows that you used to get back then, and we don't really. You do have the odd sketch show now, but it's like one every sort of 5 years, sort of thing.
The problem with sketch shows is they're a very expensive type of TV show to make. All the costumes and sets you need, basically. I mean, the ABC executive who cancelled this show basically said, I mean, maybe that was a weakness. It wasn't quite a proper sitcom. It wasn't quite a sketch show. It was kind of that ox in between kind of space. And it basically said one of the reasons for it was that they cancelled it because you had to watch episodes in order to appreciate it, because there were these recurring gags that kept cropping up throughout the series. And back then, there wasn't really, obviously, if it was like just being broadcast on a weekly basis, you might miss one, and so, which sounds stupid now, but I suppose at the time, maybe not. Maybe that is a reason.
And I mean,
and they did reckon that they would probably run out of steam if they'd have made kind of more kind of up to like the normal, like say 20 episode season for American network TV, or if they did multiple seasons, they would have run out of ideas. But they kind of, because they got stopped and then went away, did their own things for a bit, and then came back to this. They'd almost kind of accumulate all these gags over time, which they could use. I mean, for me, as much as this one's hugely influential, I think it's a comedy classic. I think the sequel's even better. I really like Naked Gun 2.5. I just think the story is better because that's about, again, feels very current. If you watch it now, it's about a big fossil fuel kind of conspiracy. So all these kind of executives, from oil and nuclear and coal, basically teaming up to kind of force President Bush Senior to give them basically a massive rebate, and you have Richard Griffiths as like this environmentalist who they get a doppelganger of to basically fight for their cause, essentially. So it's a better story to start, but I think some of the jokes are better. I think they're more confident how they're deployed as well. They know the characters. Like, I think Priscilla Presley has a lot to do, and her dynamic with Frank's more defined. So
can I ask, because I'm just looking through, I've only seen the first one, I haven't seen the second and third. Maybe I'll catch them because they're all on Netflix. What is apparently the recurring Weird Al Yankovic gag? Because he's in the first one, like
he is. Yeah, actually, I think he was just friends with Zaz filmmakers.
He's funny.
I think really. So they just put him in a scene for each movie. I think.
Like it's just a thing.
It's just a thing. Yeah.
The baseball podcast, Effectively Wild, they like to talk about baseball movies. What is and isn't a baseball movie? Like, they talk about Knives Out or whatever. In their 2163rd episode, they're trying to like define a baseball movie, and they sort of settle on like it needs to be integral to the plot, so you can't replace it. And if you were describing the movie to somebody, you would say it's a baseball movie. Like, you wouldn't say, their example, Night Swim is a baseball movie about a haunted pool. You'd say it's a horror movie about a haunted pool owned by a baseball player. In that episode, they say Naked Gun has a half hour of baseball, but it's a parody of cop movies, not a baseball movie.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
There you go. I would argue
in
it's integral to the plot, though.
In the
at
same
least at
way
the
that,
end.
therefore, The Plainsmen is not a Leslie Nielsen movie, but The Naked Gun is a Leslie Nielsen movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, and again, I mean, not all the jokes landed for me in The Naked Gun. Again, watching it somehow for the first time, it was one of those ones that was just like, I'd kind of not got that much interest in I'll get round to them eventually, sort of thing. Watching this for the first time somehow, it's like it didn't land for me in the same way that Airplane did, but I can't fault Leslie Nielsen either. Yep.
Yeah.
And some of the jokes like I appreciate, but didn't like, kind of splotted my drink everywhere. Like some of the Airplane gags are just beautifully perfect.
Yeah.
But Naked Gun has everything that is good. It just didn't tickle me in the way that Airplane does.
Okay, here's one for you. So this is one of 3 1988 comedies that features a scene in which a villain gets run over by a steamroller. Name the other 2.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yep, that's one.
Yeah.
Do you know what the other one is? 1988's comedy.
I'm not a comedy person to begin with, so
Back to the Future 2.
It's I'll give you a clue. It's British.
It's a
mad
world.
It's British, but it stars 2 Americans and 2 Brits.
Okay,
Monty
so it's not
Python.
a carry-on movie.
It does star 2 Pythons. They're the 2 Brits. 2 Pythons and 2 Americans in a British comedy from 1988.
So it's going to be John Cleese and somebody. What was John Cleese in 1988?
Yeah, he wrote this.
The Pink Panther.
No, I haven't a clue.
A Fish Called Wanda.
I never would have gotten that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Kevin Kline gets run over by a steamroller at the end of it.
The Roger Rabbit one is stuck in my brain forever because I saw it way too young. But yeah.
Proper nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
But yeah, Leslie Nielsen, he just made for this kind of role. The other scene I like. Just the problem about talking about comedies is you just end up describing the funny scenes or telling the jokes, and they're not as good. So when you
I was going to say we do need to get some proper practice in and analyzing comedy at a kind of filmic level.
I've never been able to review a comedy properly because you just end up spoiling all the jokes. It's weird.
Yeah.
But yes, so there's a scene where he's down at the docks trying to get information. So he finds a snitch, and the snitch doesn't know anything, but he needs something to refresh his memory. So he gives him some money. And then
watching that, admittedly, in my head, I was also thinking one of my favorite things from Hot Fuzz, where they drop off George Merchant in his house and say, "How much do you owe? 20 quid." Gives him the money, then Angel hands it back, and there's your change. God bless him, just hands it straight back. And I'm kind of wondering if that was one of the.
I would think that would be but basically he gives the snitch a lot of money, and then it gives him information, and then he goes, "What? Why do you want to know this?" I can't tell you that. Well, maybe this will refresh your memory.
You can get some money back.
Swapping this $20 bill back and forth.
Yeah, it's a really well done thing. And again, I actually think tying this all together, I think, again, we've said this before, but Nielsen's performances wouldn't work if he wasn't the straight guy.
He's completely deadpan,
and
although there is the odd moment where it cracks that's appear, and he's like it registers what he's done, and he's trying to look innocent, basically, like you see it in the eyes.
But all of that stuff I think wouldn't be there if he hadn't been trained as the straight guy in all of the other films before. In order to understand him in Naked Gun and Dracula Dead and Love in It and all that kind of thing, you have to understand what came before Airplane, in that he was a serious kind of jobbing actor doing normal roles, non-comedy in your dramas and your westerns and your odd sci-fi, being a normal guy. And it's literally 1980. It is a light bulb switch.
Which is why it's so interesting they've come around to Liam Neeson for the new version, because he's done exactly the same. He's done straight versions of all these kind of cop and action movies over the years, and now he's
and then hilariously enough, again, Seth MacFarlane has kind of brought him into the comedy world.
Yes.
Obviously, with the scene in Ted, then he was in Once Upon a Time in the West. No, what's the one he did? A Million Ways to Die in the West.
A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Yeah,
he,
and then
he was in the comedic remake of the Sergio Leone.
is that not good? But yeah, it's like that's kind of brought him over, and there are certain people that kind of switch over to various parts. But I think Leslie Nielsen, I can't recall anybody else that's had such a kind of tonal shift in their entire career. Literally, you can kind of date it to the release date.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously after this, this Naked Gun did well, and the sequel did well as well. Basically, each there was a new one out every 3 years. So the three of them up to the mid-90s, and after that, that was his kind of mode basically. Now, so we did Spy Hard, which isn't a particularly good spoof of James Bond. It's every couple of years I'll go back to and say, oh, maybe it wasn't that bad, and I think, and I'm like 10 minutes in, I was like, no, it is pretty bad. So I don't know why I've given this one another go. And obviously with Mel Brooks, he did Dracula, Dead and Loving It in the mid-90s as well. And then along with David Zucker, he did the last two Scary Movie films. Scary Movies 3 and 4. Even.
Yeah.
I was going to say, he did like after Airplane again, he did like one or two, but you could see everything starting to change. So he's in something like Creepshow, which has kind of a black comedy kind of thing in it. But this is 1982. He does a film apparently called Wrong is Right, or The Man with a Deadly Lens in the UK, which is a kind of a satire thriller. The Creature Wasn't Nice in 93, otherwise known as Naked Space. It's an alien parody, it just keeps going on. Again, he does all the Naked Gun in 1988, and by this point you can't stop him. Surf Ninjas, like Mrs. Willoughby's Christmas Tree, Dracula Dead and Loving It, Spy Hard, Safety Patrol, it's just Pirates Ford. The switch is pretty much like overnight. Everyone is still kind of booked him because they've got a little bit in his head and he's still doing it, but realistically the comedy is now taking over. And from that thing, I think it's interesting just in terms of analysing kind of Hollywood career trajectories, if nothing else.
Definitely.
One of the more interesting ones.
On his grave, it says, "Let her rip."
There you go.
Nice.
Oh. Well,
a grave. What is that?
Grave. No, this episode's been happy.
Beautiful.
Anyway, that's it. Leslie Nielsen was in a lot of movies, but you probably only saw his funny stuff and maybe Forbidden Planet.
Yeah, please go watch Forbidden Planet.
Definitely see Forbidden Planet if you haven't already. See at least the first two Naked Guns and Airplane. For us.
Maybe Poseidon Adventure and Prom Night, because Prom Night is good, and I'll have to rewatch it to go, oh my god, that's Leslie Nielsen, because I think I watched it like, over 10 years ago. It's going to be like 10, 12 years ago, like last time I saw Prom Night, and would not have recognized Leslie Nielsen. So,
yeah. All right. Well, that is it for Leslie Nielsen on this show. But
for now.
Yeah, we're taking next week off, but we'll be back in 2 weeks with something else. But until then, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack, where this week I have published my Fantastic Four First Steps review. So check that out.
And it is actually a good film somehow. They did it. They finally did it.
It is. They finally did it. We finally got a good Fantastic Four movie. You call off the search.
Yeah.
It is getting beat by Superman at the box office, though.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't see me anywhere, find me anywhere. If you do, on K-Judgmental, the various places. On the Substack, I've got a review of Bring Her Back, the new film by the Philippos who did Talk to Me. And tomorrow, Saturday, at some point, I will have a new kind of opinion essay on the return of the Stepford Wives motif in mainly film, but a little bit of fiction as well. Just something interesting to sink your teeth into.
Because Kieran loved Don't Worry, Darling. And you can find me at Jacob Film Guy. I reviewed Happy Gilmore 2, which is on Netflix because Adam Sandler signed a nice deal with them like over a decade ago. and it seemed to have worked out pretty well for him. It had like the most views for a Netflix debut, apparently.
I mean, that's
they're going to say that about every film that comes out, though.
I mean,
that's why
it's just a metric.
That's why
thing.
Naked Gun aside, we don't really get big screen comedy anymore, do we? It's like it tends
Seth Rogen
straight to streamers 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening, watching, and goodbye.
That is
goodbye.